we discuss real news. What is going on around our world? And how are we going to make a difference? The Mahdi's manifesto. AnsarAllah from around the world speak and express their thoughts. Korddad Al Al-Mahdi shares with us the impact this manifesto has had on him. 99% wrong. Runa takes us through the enlightening words and the goal of the wise. What is the true state of religion today? The holy will. What is the reason that a vicegerent of God would write a will? Special correspondent James Pollard uncovers why. I found the Mahdi. Zygmunt shares how he found God's messenger, Abdullah Hashem Aba Al-Sadiq. The time to rise up for peace is now, and the world is answering this call. Unity of truth. We are joined by Brother Zhong Al Al-Mahdi to discuss the beauty of unity in a world filled with conflicts. And finally, medicine of the Mahdis, the divine revelation of healing and medicine, with Dr. Irfan Alamgir. This is Rise Up.
Hello and peace be upon everyone watching us right now. Welcome to Rise Up. I'm Alia Halal.
And I'm Irfan Alamgir. Welcome to Rise Up.
So let's get right into what's going on, Irfan. We've mentioned before on the show that we are a people that believe that God's messenger on earth has appeared, that he is calling the people towards a new covenant and towards unity. And that is a theme that we would really like to hone in on today. The fact that the religions have a lot in common and that there is a religious commonality that we should be focusing on rather than dividing and creating separation and so on and so forth. But in order to get into that, it's necessary that we look at the world as it is today and we check out what is really going on the ground so that we can take a look at what God is showing us, where we have reached, what our actions have created on this planet, and how we're going to move forward. What is the next step forward? So let's go into some of the critical news that we're seeing right now regarding the Middle East.
Yes, earlier, the fact of the matter is that every prophet and messenger from Jesus to Muhammad, they gave us signs to look for in order to identify the times that we live in. And in the news, although most of it is very depressing, it is important to pay attention because we have many instances that are indicating about the times that we live in. For example, the huge possibility of the widening of the conflict in the Middle East. We have now players like the King of Jordan. We have Iraq. They are all sounding off the battle cries. It's Israel and America on one side, and then the Muslim Arab nations around, and they are all baying for blood. And if there is a regional conflict of the scale that it looks like it will go into, then there will be the fulfillment of many of the prophecies where it says war and bloodshed will dominate the earth.
And I think it's safe to say that everyone is saying it, right? That it hasn't been this bad before, the way it's pushing forward and escalating very quickly. And like you said, Irfan, there are some big players in the game right now and people are confused. They're not sure what to do and how to see the situation. But God has a perspective on it. And in his wisdom and in his mercy and his grace, he has sent forth Abdullah Hashem Aba Al-Sadiq, the man who represents Imam Mahdi in this day and age, the Qaim of the family of Muhammad, a person who, with the Spirit of God within him, is capable of explaining to us what God is trying to tell us. And we see that time and time again, God has warned his people of exactly this happening. He has said, do not allow that a situation of this nature be created. And he was very clear on how to avoid that. And that was to not take heed of these tyrants that sit on the thrones who have not been appointed by God in any shape or form. And this was exactly the outcome that was feared. This was exactly what Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, what the prophets and messengers were prophesying. And you will find those prophecies to be in books as old as the Torah, and you'll find those prophecies in the words of the Qaim of the family of Muhammad from just over a year ago as well. And they were all saying the same thing. Do not obey a man not appointed by God. Do not give him your allegiance, because if you do so, then corruption will appear on the land and in the seas. And that is what is happening right now.
Yes, it's a very complex geopolitical situation on the ground. You've got the Shia Crescent that we've mentioned before, which is essentially run by the Iranian regime, and then you've got the Sunni alliance with the Saudis and Jordan and other countries. So there is the potential for huge conflict, and the world is being run on petroleum. So all these barrels of oil that are making our cars run, that are making our economies run in the West, should make the West equally concerned. And it's in our best interests, sitting in the United States or in the UK or in Europe, in Africa. If there is a regional conflict, it will quickly spiral out of control. It is an extremely volatile area. It is governed and run by some of the most maniacal, egotistical human beings that have ever walked the face of the earth. And with them at the helm, it has the potential for catastrophic consequences. And everyone who's watching this now must look for that light amidst the overwhelming darkness, and the dark clouds are gathering. We, of course, Alia, talked about the storm Helene, which is now carrying, it's increasing in momentum, and the likelihood of it causing huge amounts of damage to the Americas is there. We have storms and huge climate change issues in the world. So the problems are all across the board. It's not just war, it's natural disasters and diseases and plagues, and all things of this nature are now coming to a head. And amidst this noise and chaos, a manifesto has been published by the true representative of God, Aba Al-Sadiq, and it is something that is in everyone's interest to read it, to see light at the end of the tunnel. It is that light, and we're in a very dark tunnel, but thankfully it is darkest just before the dawn.
Exactly. And the manifesto is available on our website. Go ahead and check it out. It's available in several languages now, including English, of course. But the idea of the manifesto coming out in this time period, when things are really getting much bigger than people were imagining they would be. And while we were reading prophecies, and while people were aware that war and rumors of war are actually a part of the signs of the end times, they were not really looking to what comes in the future. And in general, and this is what's very odd, in general, you find that, at least in the Abrahamic faiths, you will find people proclaiming faith in the appearance of a savior. And they're very vocal about it, and they're sure that it's something that's imminent. Yet when you explain to the Muslims that the Mahdi has appeared, or when you tell the Christians that the Messiah is here supporting the Mahdi, you do not find with that news to be a lot of belief. The people are almost numb to a state of disbelief and have been conditioned to imagining that such a phenomenon cannot occur in their lifetimes. In fact, we've heard people saying that the Mahdi will come, but not in this day and age. Even though every single sign of the end times is being fulfilled, and every single prophecy that was meant to take place right before he appears has taken place. So if it's not now, then when? That's the question. If we are talking to a people who believe in the words of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and these people believe that they said that he will appear at certain points in the timeline. For example, we have this very solid narration that tells us that when King Abdullah of Hijaz, when he dies, that is when you expect that the Mahdi appears. That is also when you expect that the Qaim appears. And these two separate narrations, while they were believed by the masses of the Muslim nation, they still did not take heed to the fact that the Mahdi did indeed appear at that time. And the only platform, the only point of contact for the people that was bringing them to the idea of allegiance to God after the death of King Abdullah was the call of Aba Sadiq, from him is peace. And there was no other voice out there calling to that. Right,
and you indicated towards a very important hadith, Alia, when you were talking about the death of King Abdullah of Hijaz. Never in history has the Hijaz been ruled by a family like the Saudis. And never in history has there been a man who was named after a leopard, Fahd, who was succeeded by his brother named Abdullah. This is a very significant finding. You can look at the family tree of this very cursed group of people, and you can see all the names of all the leaders, of all the kings that they've had, and never has there been Fahd and then succeeded by Abdullah.
His own brother, by the way, which is not the norm.
Right.
The norm was the father to son, but in the hadith it was that it will pass on to his brother, which was odd.
Yes, and so that there's no room for doubt, the hadith actually clarifies in very, very lucid details the particular problems that this man, who's named after a leopard, Fahad, has with his eye. And I urge everybody to read this hadith, and it's been published many times on our channel. And this eye defect that he has is a very peculiar one, where, you know, if you look at him from afar and then you get close, then his eye changes. It's a cross-eyed that's dependent on the distance that you look at him at. And Fahad really did have this problem. He had this ocular problem with alignment in his eyes. And any event that happened after the death of the king of Hijaz is extremely significant. So this is where that initial wake-up call comes.
Yes.
And then after this instant, you have to pay attention to everything that's going on. And now in the Middle East, and there have been many wars. People are like, oh, the Middle East has had wars for many, many, many years. It's been an unstable, volatile zone. What are you talking about? Well, now, because of this narration, this knowledge from the family of Muhammad, you have an obligation to really, really now hone in on the fact that the area is just about to implode. And if that happens, we will all feel the repercussions. So now is the time to really pay attention to the news. Everything that's happening in the Holy Land is significant and something that you should take note of.
And I think it's important that we also look to history here and we take a lesson from it. In the time of Moses, when Pharaoh was ruling and when he had enslaved the children of Israel, there's this idea in the minds, and we've talked about this between ourselves,
yes,
that when you read the books or you even watch movies that depict the history that we're talking about here, you find that the idea is that there's this widespread enslavement and everyone is being forced to do what they're being told to do, to be slaves, to build and to dig and to fish and do whatever they're being told by that evil Pharaoh. And of course it was like that. But what was more significant in that time period was the enslavement of their minds. And the children of Israel had really been corrupted by that evil Pharaoh and by his fear-mongering and by his brutal tactics. And they were a people whose spirits had been broken. And they had lost hope. They were people who were hoping, some of them, with some faith that remained within them, had that spark of hope still that there will be a savior, because they had been told by their fathers and by their forefathers that a man will come to free our nation. And they knew that this man will be Moses, peace be upon him, but they didn't know how he would appear. They didn't know from where he would appear. Little did they expect that he would be raised in the palace of Pharaoh himself. And these people, these children of Israel, were by now so completely depleted of hope and faith that when Moses did come, he now had to convince them and explain to them that it was now the time to rise up. And it was only by their faith in him that something moved forward. And because the darkness was so dark, the light had to shine through. We're living in the same period in this day and age and a much worse darkness, a much worse corruption, as is prophesied. And the enslavement is, while it is not apparent to the people, it's very much there. It's very insidious, but it's there. People are slaves at the moment to the tyrants, to the non-religious scholars or the non-working scholars, to the institutions that claim authority. And rising up for us does not mean to create chaos. On the contrary, rising up for us means to wake up to these ideals and find the light and support the light. That is what rising up means.
And a very, very important point that you made, Alia, which is that the children of Israel, when they were in Egypt, being brutally oppressed by the Pharaoh and his regime, they were expecting a deliverer. They were actually looking, because the oppression had gotten so bad that not only were they killing the sons, the newborn baby boys of the Israelites in Egypt, but they were basically living in the worst form of slavery you can imagine. They had no rights, they had no payment, etc., etc. At the end of it all, they were expecting Moses, a man to come who would take them out of their enslavement and take them to the promised land. And just like that, Prophet Muhammad told the Muslims to look for a man to come at a time similar to that, which is called the Mahdi or the Qa'im. And this is the point. The heavens will not just split asunder and God will suddenly make the enemies die. No, God will always send a man And it is our responsibility to find him and support him. This is the key point that you made earlier so well there.
Can you imagine Moses comes to the children of Israel and they don't stand behind him and they don't support him and they don't rally around him, and he's meant to free them and he's meant to take them out of slavery from Pharaoh and take them to the promised land? That is exactly what Imam Mahdi is meant to be doing according to the narrations. He's meant to be taking the people to the kingdom of heaven, to the divine just state, to whatever you want to call it. Different scriptures have different names for that place. In essence, it is Eden on earth. And in order to do that, we have to stand behind him. It's time, the time has come for the nation that call themselves Muslim to stop saying things such as, well, when is Imam Mahdi going to fix everything? Well, when is Imam Mahdi going to stop the war? Why is there war? Imam Mahdi should fix that. Imam Mahdi should come and help us in this way or that way. That's not at all the point of the Mahdi's appearance. The point of the Mahdi's appearance is to rally around the Spirit of God. And the Qaim of the family of Muhammad, Aba Sadiq, has been explaining that and teaching that in the most eloquent way possible. And God is so merciful and so gracious that he ensured that Aba Sadiq take the forefront and teach people in a kind, slow, gracious manner how they should be thinking and how they should be behaving, because they've forgotten, or shall we say, they've been conditioned by the wrong teachers for a very long time. And one of those incredible ways that he is teaching the people is that manifesto that has been written recently, that has in it outlined exactly what it is that we should understand, that we should be doing right now as a people that believe in God. One of the believers in this call, Korddad Al Al-Mahdi, who we have shown time and time again on our show and we are extremely proud of and we love very much and we're honored to call our brother, he has had some very interesting and important thoughts on the matter. So we would love to go ahead and look at what Korddad Al Al-Mahdi has to say about the manifesto of the Mahdi.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all of the believers around the world and to all of the people, and especially to my Lord and my Masters, Imam Aba Al-Sadiq Abdullah Hashem, from his peace. So I wanted to share something, I want to speak something, after reading the manifesto of the Qaim, manifesto of the Mahdis that is written by him. He mentioned a sentence that struck my heart, When I found this sentence, I was like, yes, this is the solution that the humanity needs. This is the problem that throughout history that humanity is facing. And that sentence is that people let's talk about the people, they are making revolution without it Moses. This is something that all of the human beings in this earth can experience. It is something that if you look at the history, you will find that people, they try to make a revolution, and then, but yet because they lack their Moses, meaning when we say lack their Moses, we are referring they are lacking a divinely appointed king, divinely appointed leader, a messenger of God of the time, and they make this revolution, try to top out, the tyrants that are ruling them. It's just gonna be another tyrant, replacing them. It's like the people, when the tyrant is ruling them, they got fed up, they got tired of this regime, they gather, and then they try to make a revolution out of it and topple this tyrant's down. But in the end, because of a revolution that is making without its Moses, meaning without a divinely appointed king, in the end it is just another tyrants replacing that nation. So that's what happens, with Iran. Actually, if you can see Iran, in the manifesto book, in the manifesto of the Mahdi, written by Aba Sadiq, fathers give us an example of Egypt, where people make a revolution without, it's Moses. In the end, it's just another tyrant replacing it, and it got even worse. When this tyrant came to power, replacing it, it got even worse. And the same thing happened. It's like a domino effect. And this actually is something that you can see even in Iran regime. When Khomeini try, to make a revolution, he was swaying the heart of the people, showing them, look, this guy right here ruling you now is tyrant, and then he came in the name of Ahlul Bayt, he is not even appointed by God. He came in the name of Ahlul Bayt, try to show that, we need to make a revolution and topple these tyrants out. Then we establish a rule. So what happened? People, they make a revolution in Iran, right? By this, so-called people that claims the name of Ahlul Bayt to top out the regime at that time, the tyrants at that time. So what happened when it got topped out? Since Khomeini, he claimed the name of Ahlul Bayt, he is not appointed by God. People take him as a leader. Khomeini established Wilayatul Faqih, or the rule of jurisprudence, claiming to rule in the name of Ahlul Bayt. But in the end, since he is not appointed by God, it is just another rule, tyrant's oppressive ruler replacing this nation. And it even worse, because he claimed the name of Ahlul Bayt. They claim that they speak on behalf of Ahlul Bayt, but they turn out to be absolute tyrants, that even worse than the previous government. So that's why we see here, it is nothing, I wanted to call to all the people, you guys need to realize on this. You guys, might got tired with the tyrant, got fed up with the ruler that's ruling upon you right now, right? It is no use to make a revolution without its Moses, without a divine king, that is appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, appointed by God. If you go on and make a revolution without its Moses, without the messenger of God of the time, it's just going to be a tyrant replacing you, one after the other, even worse and worse and worse. So that's why it's important. The first thing to solve these matters, like mentioned in the manifesto of Aba Al-Sadiq, I saw this is something that this is solving the problem of humanity. Is that first thing you have to do? It's not like you go and make revolution first. No. First thing is you need to find a leader who is appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, appointed by God. So he come in the name of God, he's appointed by God, he will lead you to this revolution. So when you guys make a revolution, you guys have a leader who is from God, a leader who is appointed by God with you. And then after you top out the tyrant, then this leader appointed by God can ascend to the throne, and then he will be ruling the nation. His ruling will be equates with God's ruling, because God rules the nation through him. Imagine, guys, God created the whole world, and then suddenly God, doesn't get to rule. Just logic. God created the whole world, and suddenly people push him out, and says we're going to elect our own leader, but then they are pushing God not to rule. I mean, this world, God created, he's the one that's supposed to rule. He's the owner. He's supposed to rule. In order for him to rule, it has to be someone whom he appointed, because he ruled to the man whom he appointed, not by the people. So people now, they need to wake up. They need to return this rulership to God. To God. God created the earth. He is the one that's supposed to rule. It's not for the people that is not appointed by him to rule. Now, people that elected, that elected their own leaders, elected their own kings, not who is not appointed by God. Just you, in your heart, love this king who is not appointed by God, or love this leader or president, what you want to call it, the title, right? Who is not appointed by God. Just you love it in your heart, or just you pleased with him, pleased with this ruler. There is no difference between those who elected with the people that elected them. In the end, you will share the works, everything that this king, this ruler do. Meaning what? Meaning share what? If he kills a lot of people, if he commit a lot of genocide, if he commit a lot of oppression, all of this that he do will also be upon your neck. because you're the one that put this guy in power, or just because you love him, you pleased with him. You know, it's the same thing. You will share in all of his work as well. You look how serious this matter is. Unless the people decided that they return back to God, return back to the rulership of God, return back to the supremacy of God, and abandon the supremacy of the people, or in another word, the supremacy of the devil. Why I say the supremacy of the devil? Because those who are not appointed by God, those who assume authority, assume leadership without God's appointment, will automatically be the appointment of the devil. Because devil is opposed the rulership of God from the beginning. He does not want the rulership of God. That's why he refused Adam. So essentially, those who are not appointed by God that rules the people is actually appointed by the devil. So now we have to turn back to the man whom God appointed. This is religion. Now this is very important. So you first need to find your Moses of the time. You have to find your Jesus of the time. You have to find your Muhammad of the time. You have to find the messenger of God of your time. Then if you make a revolution by his leadership, who is sent by God, then only justice and equality can be established. If you make a revolution without a man appointed by God, it's going to be just another tyrant over and over and over again. Going to be domino effect that's going to replacing it and ruling you. It's solve nothing. The only solution is that you have to find a man who is appointed by God first. This is your first step. Then if you make a revolution by under his leadership, this will be justice and equality can be established, because only God, can establish for us this justice and equality. So God sent someone and he ruled the nation through him. So enough is enough. We say enough, shout out enough to the tyrants. With us right now is God. With us right now is the Mahdi. With us is the Qaim Aba Al-Sadiq, Abdullah Hashem. From him is peace. He is a man who is God appointed. He is the divinely king, the divinely appointed king now of this time. He is the messenger of God of this time, and he is Moses of its time. Enough is enough for the oppression this day and age. We need to stand up. We need to stand up. We have to turn back to God and his messengers. This is the only way that all of the problem that the humanity facing right now can be solved. Enough is enough. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad ala imma wal mahdiyin wa sallam taslima. Labbayka ya Aba Al-Sadiq, labbayka ya Aba Al-Sadiq, labbayka ya Aba Al-Sadiq. Through the one true king, to the one true person that is appointed by God, Aba Al-Sadiq, Aba Al-Sadiq, Aba Al-Sadiq, the one who is mentioned in the will of Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That was Korddad Al Al-Mahdi explaining to the people of the world, to everyone who can hear his voice, his understanding and the importance and significance of the manifesto of the Mahdi.
Great pace.
Amazing.
Yeah. I hope he becomes a regular contributor to the show and to the channel.
I really hope so too, because we really enjoy listening to Brother Korddad's words. And why do we enjoy listening to them? We were actually talking about that right before we cut back to the studio. Korddad's way of explaining it is, it's basically the reason why those words will touch the hearts of those who believe in God is because Korddad has faith. And faith is a powerful thing. Having faith in God is such a living spirit. It's such a living entity that encompasses you, and you can go in your life and achieve such miracles if you find that messenger of God and you have that kind of faith. And this is why we're sitting here, isn't it? We're sitting here to convey that to the world. I mean, the Mahdi's manifesto is no mediocre book. It's not a small piece of writing or just the ideas or whims of a man. This is the outline of God's plan for mankind that is very, very near. That is no small matter at all. This is something that we have to, as a people, now recognize and understand that it's happening with or without us. The train has set off, God has decided something, and it's going to take place. Now, who wants to board the ark? Who wants to be part of that mission and that plan? And who wants to get left behind? And who wants to be afraid or confused and stay in the back lines and not know what's going on? That's the question now.
Yeah, and who wants to follow the Moses of this time out of enslavement and to the promised land? I think every oppressed person around the world would yell, me. And Korddad very beautifully, Brother Korddad very beautifully articulates the simplicity of the truth. He is one of the voices of reason in a world where the chaos is unfolding before our eyes. And he is calling people towards the manifesto of the proof of God in our time. A manifesto that simplifies a vision of a better future. A manifesto that uses simple language that any person can understand. A manifesto that is being written in so many different languages now, I've lost count, so that there will be no excuse for anybody to say that I did not come across something in my language. This channel is broadcast in a number of different languages,
That's
the
right.
most popular languages around the world, and we are increasing those languages. We've recently had somebody from Poland join the bandwagon
Exactly,
as well.
and we're going to actually go later on in the show and take a look at an interview we did with him before that's available on our YouTube channel as well to watch in full. But it's just, I think that what we're seeing is something very powerful. It's something very powerful, and anyone with eyes to see and ears to hear will see it. Korddad is a young man in Thailand, from Thailand, who truly believes that God has a spirit that lives in earth in a man, and this man is meant to rule. And if you listen to his words, he said something incredible, and it sounds so simple, but it's not something simple. It's something huge, and it's the entirety of religion itself. Korddad said in a very few words, he said, God is supposed to be the one who rules. He just said it like that. And when he said that, I felt like an arrow just pierced my heart because of how true those words are. That is the message of Aba Al-Sadiq, and that is the message of every prophet and messenger that has been on earth.
Which believer, Alia, can argue against that?
I don't understand how anyone can defy that.
I mean, if you are, then how can you argue against the sentence that Alia just reiterated?
How can you dislike the idea? Anyone who believes in a God should not. Our loyalty is meant to be to the ultimate authority, the ultimate entity that exists, that created everything. So the creator, the king of all kings is God. And to say that, yes, we have a God, but don't worry, we also have other rulers, it doesn't work like that. God is the ultimate, which means that the ones who are of God will see him as the ultimate and as the only. There is no God but one. There is no one to submit to except one. There is no one to obey except one. And this is so revolutionary, so powerful, and so courageous, because we're living in a world, as Korddad says in his piece, where there are too many other powers that want to take the throne.
Yes. Very, very, very beautiful point, Ali. And it raises the topic of monotheism, and it raises a very important question, that if it is not God who is ruling, then who is ruling?
Wow.
Right? And actually monotheism is, and we'll talk about this in our segment coming up today with Brother Zhong, is also it's not just an Abrahamic concept, it's a concept throughout every world religion. And even in the so-called polytheistic religions of Hinduism, if you go down deep enough, they actually believe in an all-pervasive spirit, the one absolute God. And it is that one absolute God that Brother Korddad said should be the one who is ruling, because if he's not ruling, then there is something else ruling, and that something else is not something you want to be affiliated with.
It's the anti-God. There's either God or the anti-God. There's no in-between.
It's either Jesus or the Antichrist.
Exactly. It's either Jesus or the Antichrist. It's Adam or the devil.
Yes.
It's Imam Hussein or Yazid. It's Moses or Pharaoh. It's Abraham or Nimrod. It's always the light versus the dark. There's no in-between. There's no, I am God, but these people are okay. They can rule you too. No. God is the one who rules, and this is what he's been insisting on since the beginning of time, when he made it very clear to the angels, when he said to them, I will create on the earth a caliph. And that's from the Holy Quran, from Surah Al-Baqarah. This verse number 30, and you can look it up right now if you want to, and if you're not familiar with the Holy Quran, you can just search it up right now. Right, chapter 2, verse 30, Holy Quran, and you'll see what I'm saying. It says, God said to the angels, I will create on the earth a caliph. So God decided that the first man he makes is the king, is the ruler. He could have said, I'll make a very good man on earth, and this man will be a man in the end. But he intended that Adam be a ruler, because that's the point of God's entire system. His plan was that creation have a ruler, because if it does not have a ruler, what happens is what we see today. Chaos, disruption, war, rumors of war, and so on and so forth. And I want to point out something that's happening that you just saw right now, just in case it missed the understanding of the people. When you see someone like Korddad, when you see someone like Brother Zygmunt, who we're going to bring on, or Brother Zhong, when you see myself and Dr. Irfan, and the other brothers and sisters that you watch on this channel, and on our other channel that broadcasts to the Middle East and North Africa, when you see us on social media, when you find footage or content of the companions of Aba Sadiq, and you watch us, I want you to realize that we are not a people that came from one nation or one race. We are a people that have come from every corner of the earth. But something is drawing us together. Something is filling us with conviction. People of different backgrounds who have been raised differently, who've had different languages spoken to them, who have different knowledge of religion, who were conditioned with different ideas, are actually believing and realizing and admitting to the one truth, that allegiance is to God. And somehow that truth is so powerful that it's enough. It's enough to convince these different kinds of people to leave everything they knew and rush to that banner that says allegiance is to God. So if this is not a living religion, if this is not the living spirit of God in the riser of the family of Muhammad, Aba Sadiq, then where is it? Then where is Imam Mahdi? Then what is the banner of Imam Mahdi? It is not. If it is not this banner, then what is his banner? That is my question.
Yeah, there is no other banner, Alia. There is no other banner that matches the narrations from the family of Muhammad that says on his banner it is written, allegiance is to God. And there is no other call that has people from all over the world coming in to give allegiance to the Mahdi other than this one. This is the religion of true monotheism, true unity, and true salvation for all those who seek it.
Exactly. And the other side to the coin, so to speak, would be the idea of, well, what about the other religions then? What are we looking at now? If we look at the landscape and we find all these different religions and these mosques and churches and synagogues and temples, and we find these pastors and priests and sheikhs with their long beards, you know, and their rosaries and their turbans and all these books and all these interpretations of them. There's a plethora of religion, whatever that means for the masses. For us, religion means believing in the man sent by God. It's quite simple. In general, when you look at the world, religion is a bit of a messy, chaotic scheme of societal norm, so to speak. That's really all religion has become. And that's unfortunate, but it's also highlighted by the riser of the family of Muhammad, Aba Sadiq, in the Goal of the Wise. Now, if you read the Goal of the Wise, you'll find in it very beautifully, eloquently written down by his hand how religions have turned out the way they have. Religion begins as a true form of itself, but it ultimately begins to get corrupted by those who enter into the fold and decide to reject the messenger. And that's why God began new covenants through history. We have a great segment coming up next where Runa Al-Mahdi explains what Aba Sadiq is saying in the Goal of the Wise regarding the corruption of mainstream religions in this day and age. And she quotes him from the Goal of the Wise. I'd love to go ahead and check that out so we can see what Aba Sadiq himself says about religion and the corruption we see in it today.
Every religion, from the ancient Egyptian mystery religions to the ancient Greek religions, to Buddhism, Hinduism, and Manichaeism, are all based on true revelations from God. Although every religion has become corrupted and falsehoods have entered into it through means of non-working scholars and enemies of the faith, just as it has with Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, from him is peace, has stated that 99% of religion is wrong. Not 99% of all religions, 99% of each religion, even Islam. Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, from him is peace, seeks to unite all religions and show the falsehoods and show the truth in every one of them, thus uniting all covenants, all messages from all prophets under one divine covenant and message, the seventh covenant. Unfortunately, the sons of Satan that are on the earth have taken religion as a means of controlling and oppressing people, and have taken religion as a means to separate people and cause wars in the name of God. Due to the corruption of the teachings and words of the prophets and messengers, the sons of Satan, led by their non-working scholars, will fight the Qa'im on his mission to unite humanity. The seventh covenant is difficult and heavy upon the Arabs. This is why the traditions from the Ahl Bayt record them as saying, "The Qa'im shall rise with a new matter, a new book and a new jurisprudence, which will be hard for the Arabs."
A very powerful piece by Sister Runa, highlighting the fact that over time the religion of God, the pure religion of God, gets usurped, gets hijacked, infiltrated by the priests of the religion, who then, in imitation of God's true prophet and true messenger, then begin to start that process of corruption that requires that divine reset, where God comes with a new messenger, with a new covenant. And the Prophet Muhammad said it. His words are there for all to see. He said that the scholars of the religion, the jurisprudence of the end times, will be the worst under the cloud of the sky. And as it was in the time of Jesus Christ, when the Pharisees became his biggest opponents, the scholars of religion are the Mahdi's biggest opponents. And they are the hub of corruption. From them the fitna rises, and to them it shall return. And this is a very prevalent idea, isn't it, Alia, where the priests are always opposing the prophets.
It seems to be the pattern, and it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. I mean, if you look at the story of mankind, excuse me, from the beginning, and you find that, and this is the premise of every religion in some shape or form, that God had the decision to create human beings, and then there was this dark force that came up and said, I oppose those human beings. And that dark force has various names. Some call him Azazel, some say he's the devil, some say Iblis, some say Satan, some say Shaitan. In the end, it's the same entity that's being referred to. So imagine now this entity that is so dark going against humankind and saying that, no, I do not like these people, I want to go against them, and I want to make them fall, and I want to prove my point. And if you go through the Eastern religions and you go through the Abrahamic faiths, you'll find that that is the basic story. Whatever their names might have been, or however the story played out, this was basically the story. And everyone agrees with it. So now the question is, how would he do so? Well, clearly he has to infiltrate, doesn't he? He has to come into that system of God that's been created and kind of ruin it and add things to it. He's not going to do so by blunt force. He'll do it as he always has done, in that sneaky fashion, in that insidious way of just coming in quietly, dressed up as in the costume, right, of the holy man, and say that actually I'm the one who's the holy man, not the other one. And he'll take over the throne. And that's what we're seeing, and it's always the same thing. So unfortunately, the culprit is right in front of us, but it's camouflaged, it's hidden away in plain sight. That's the scary part of corrupted religion. It's
a very scary part, Ali. And also, if you look at let's quickly analyze the covenant prophets. And the central role that the devil himself, known as Iblis by the Muslims, Satan, call him by whatever name you will, but Adam, who was he opposed and tempted by? It was Iblis.
Yes.
Move on to the next prophet after Adam, Noah. I mean, Noah had some of the worst tyrants on the face of the earth opposing him. In the Quran, it calls them the chiefs of the nation.
The notable ones.
The notable one, the scholars, the powerful leaders and religious leaders. After him came Abraham. Abraham had one of the worst tyrants in history opposing him. Because every time God sends a new covenant for the salvation and for the welfare of mankind, Satan focuses all of his energy on that individual. And this is why from Noah onwards, the covenant prophets are known as Ulul Azm, the prophets of extreme determination, because they were facing the greatest opposition. Then came Moses. Who was he opposed by? One of the worst tyrants in history, Pharaoh.
I mean, the name Pharaoh has become that name that you give to a tyrant, the Pharaoh. Pharaoh is known as that tyrannical leader or ruler.
Yeah.
And it's because of it's in virtue of his reputation, his very dark reputation as the Pharaoh.
Right.
And Moses had to oppose him and his entire system and take on a people who were so broken in spirit, but somehow he filled them with enough faith to go along with him.
Yes, yes. And who came after? Was Jesus. And Jesus came, and he was... Who did he meet in the wilderness? Who was focused solely on misguiding him and bringing him towards the dark side of the force? Call it whatever you want. It was the devil. It's there in the Gospels. This was the encounter with the three temptations. And after that, it became the religious scholars, the Pharisees, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And now, with the final covenant bringer, the Qaim of the family of Muhammad, he has the biggest and greatest challenge of all. He has the worst of the worst. All of them have returned. All these personalities I mentioned, Nimrod, Pharaoh, all of these past entities have returned, and as well as the devil himself, and they are now all gathered in battle formation against the Qaim, against the riser of the family of Muhammad. But this time victory is promised, and you should join the team that's going to win this time, which is going to be the believers in the one true God and his messenger.
Yes, you should join this team, the team of God himself. And we have the best banner out there, we have the best slogan, we have the best captain at our helm, and we know that we're moving forward with full speed ahead and towards a much brighter future. And an aspect that was mentioned by Sister Runa, where she's reading from the Goal of the Wise, one of the things she said, which I think is very important that we point out, we have quite a variety of viewers out there who we know are watching us right now, who are from various religions, various understandings of faith. Irfan, she says that God is here to unite the religions, or Aba Sadiq is here to unite the religions. What would that mean? So for us, we understand what that means, but people out there, when they hear us saying, well, the religions are corrupted now, and Islam is no longer the way it was meant to be, and Christianity was taken over by Paul and it's no longer the way Jesus intended, and so on and so forth. Why would we then say we're uniting the religions? What does that really mean to the viewers out there?
It's a very good question, Ali, that you've asked. It's a deep question, but I think the first thing that comes into my mind is when the people broke the covenant of Noah, they were inflicted with a punishment, and that was the different languages.
Yes.
And this separated mankind because mankind were united in disobedience of God. And so the punishment that came down upon them was to disunite them, and then they became, of course, warring factions.
Wow.
Well, now is the time for unity. You know, we speak many different languages. We are blessed to have this, and it had to be this way, because then people can't say on the Day of Judgment that when the Qaim came, I did not support him because I couldn't hear his call in my language. How many languages do we have now?
Well, quite a lot. I mean, if you go through the list, we can easily reach 15, I think, if you go through all of them one by one.
Yeah.
And prevalently, of course, it is English, and people out there, most of the people can speak English. A great majority speak French, and we ensure that our content is in French. We've got German, Portuguese, Spanish. We've got Arabic and Farsi, Malaysian, Thai. I mean, the list goes on. We've got Mandarin.
Yes.
We have Korean.
So true.
What's missing? There's hardly anything missing. We have Slovenian, Slovakian, Serbian.
and the list goes
Indian,
on.
of course, Bengali.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
And it makes me so happy to hear
list.
all this list that you're just reeling off. Exactly, forgot Urdu.
I can't believe I forgot Urdu, but we've got Urdu.
Of course. And, you know, just as Satan wishes to unite the people under his banner of misguidance, God wants to unite the people under the banner of his guidance. So the forces of darkness are always trying to accomplish the same goals, but in a negative light, in a negative way.
Like a perverted form.
A perversion
right?
of the truth. That's why when these organizations, these secret groups are talking about the one world government. Yeah, if the one world government has Satan as its helm, it's going to be a very bad thing.
That's a very bad idea.
Right? But if the one world government is under the rulership of God, then that is a utopia, people. How can people fight against one another when they see the other as themselves, which is one of the main ideals of monotheism. True monotheism is not just a concept, it is a practice. You know, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. So the idea of monotheism is a beautiful idea. It is the truth. It has always been the case with every religion. And that unification of mankind with God as the ruler through his spirit in a man is the method that God has chosen for the prosperity of mankind. So we should embrace it. There should be no resistance.
Absolutely. So in terms of the true religion, because like you said, Irfan, there's this idea of the perverted form. There's the true form and the perverted form. God brings the true form, and the devil tries to pervert another form of it and show the people that is the original, that is the true one. And was Judaism the true religion at one point? It was. And that is the idea. If we say we believe in Moses, we say we believe in Abraham, clearly we must believe in the Torah. Clearly we must believe in their teachings. We say we believe in Jesus. Then do we reject the Gospels like the Muslims do? No, we embrace the Gospels. We do believe in Jesus. We do believe in his teachings. Do we believe in Prophet Muhammad then? Yes, we do. So are we saying that Islam was once a true religion? We absolutely are. What we are saying is that there was truth in every religion out there, from the teachings of Buddha and Lao Tzu and Krishna, all the way to Aristotle and Socrates, all the way to Abraham and Muhammad and Jesus. All these names that I'm saying right now, we see them as prophets and messengers, and we see that they brought truth to mankind. But that truth became scattered and lost. And the Mahdi comes in the end times to take and retrieve those pieces, put them together for the people, and show the human family, look, this was your heritage, let's go back to it. And that is the beauty of the true religion. You see it as new, but actually it is the original that was forgotten and lost by people. And how do we go back then? Now this is the question, right? How do we go back? How do we find our way back home?
Yes.
And God is extremely wise in his workings and very logical. And that is another part of the call of Aba Sadiq that we really love so much. How logical and perfect God truly is, and how you see his perfection by following the man, Aba Sadiq. By seeing him, heeding him, understanding him, you see God's perfection, and your belief in him just gets more and more enforced. God is so perfect that he created a system that can help us understand who to follow and who will take us home back to him. And I'm referring now to that document that is meant to be written by every vicegerent, and that is the will. The will is a concept we've talked about many times, and we will continue to talk about until it is understood fully by everyone. And Brother James discusses a very important point about the will. So what is that question that we always hear? Well, what if anyone claims to be from the will? We've heard many people say that. We've had some Muslims come up to us and say to us, well, my name is Abdullah. What if I say I'm written in the will of Prophet Muhammad? What is the answer to that question? Brother James Pollard uncovers the truth behind the true claimant of the will and why it is always the true claimant who claims the will. So shall we go ahead and see what James has to say about it? Let's take a look.
It's clear that having a ruler is necessary. It's a matter of common sense. And since it's a matter of common sense, God has clearly thought about it, which is why you find these various leaders and rulers all over the world saying they have the right to rule based on their religion. They say they have the right to rule because they have been chosen by God himself, because he has made it clear in his scriptures that he alone chooses the ruler. And if we look into the book of Daniel, it states that he changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. And then if we turn to the book of Proverbs, it also says, by me kings reign, and rulers decree what is just. By me princes rule and nobles, all who govern justly. But we know throughout history, it's not always those who govern who are just. There have been many unjust rulers as well. Just take Pharaoh at the time of Moses. And what about Nimrod, who did everything in his capacity to try and kill Abraham? And from the Holy Quran, we have, say, O God, O Lord of the kingdom, you give kingdom to whom you will and take kingdom away from whom you will. And you bestow honor on whom you will and bring disgrace to whom you will. In your hand lies betterment of everyone. You are surely powerful over everything. Now, according to the Abrahamic faith, Adam was actually the first man of the human race. Yet when we look into other religions, such as Islam, we see clearly that he was also appointed as a caliph or ruler for the people. It's said in the Holy Quran, I am creating a caliph over the people. So if we recognize this from Islam, we can clearly see that then when Adam eventually died, he must have made a way to recognize who would come after him, who would be the leader for mankind. So when we delve into it, we see that Adam left a will, a final testament, so that the people would recognize who to follow after him. So we know from Adam that his successor was supposed to be Abel. But Abel's brother Cain killed him in a fit of rage of envy and jealousy. And as a result of that, the successorship would need to pass down to someone else. Now Adam, in his wise and sensibility, recorded down in the will that his successor should be the next in line, which was his son Seth. Now that will was presented to Seth, and he would then himself present that to the people so they would know in each and every time who was supposed to be their leader. And this happened with each and every prophet and messenger throughout history. So we see that in each and every age, all of the prophets and messengers would stand amongst the people and pull out that will and then expressively show where their name was written. And therefore the people knew who was their leader and who they should submit to in that age. But 1 second, is that method really safe? Is this way of identifying God's ruler actually a waterproof, ironclad way of doing things? In other words, can it really be that simple? On the other hand, if God himself, the glorious, mighty, and exalted God, is writing this document, this mystical message, then surely the ink he is writing it with has in it a miracle. And it does, because this will, this testament that belongs to the man from God, has to be kept safe. The mystical, supernatural hand of God himself is writing a document for us every time. It is protected from corruption and protected from being claimed by the wrong people. It is something God provides, a safe handle to him in exchange for the currency of faith. It's a matter of give and take.
I think in that piece we just watched, James very succinctly explains why it is that you would not be misguided if you were to heed the words of the will of the previous vicegerent. And I think it's quite clear that that question is a question that comes from a place of doubt. It comes from a place of disbelief in God. And that as strange as that might sound to those listening to me, it really is the case that when we doubt in God's ability to keep us safe, when we doubt in God's desire to safeguard our faith while we are sincere towards him, then what is that other than disbelief?
Right, and beautiful piece actually there, and every time we mention the will, it it is important to repeat it because it is the cornerstone of this call and of every call. It is following divine precedent. And one of the ayahs of the Quran that Brother James referred to is that to God belongs the sovereignty.
Yes.
You know, He gives it to whom He wills. And this is just signifying that God is the one who appoints the ruler in the land. He knows what is best for the people, and He knows who is best suited to guide the people. And this is the companion of the will, Aba Al-Sadiq. Who else is claiming the will of the Prophet Muhammad? Who else is claiming the will as Jesus claimed it, as Moses claimed it, as Noah claimed it? These are all companions of the will. The will is a central document. If you're a Sunni Muslim, like I was before, it is mentioned that something was to be written before the Prophet Muhammad was disturbed and interrupted and refuted. And then it says he threw all of the companions out of his home, and then he dictated it in private to the Prince of the Believers. And then, of course, the narration switched to the family of Muhammad, the people who call themselves Shia, and they have the will written in full with all the names of the successors. As it was mentioned before, it is in this day and age, the will is crucial to understand and crucial to read, and it is a document you should be sleeping with on your bedside table, because in it is salvation.
Wow, very well said. I mean, I think that it's a tragedy that people are not aware of it. But we have to make sure that you understand that in your history, in the history of mankind, in scripture, in religion, there was something very significant that was never highlighted for you until God sent up a Sadiq. There was a very important fact, a very important piece of knowledge that people were not aware of until Aba Sadiq was sent by God, until he highlighted what is in your very books, what is in your very scriptures and narrations, and that is that a will is written by the vicegerent of the time. And why does he write a will? Not to tell you where his properties are going, not to leave his savings to his children, but rather to write down the name of the man who will next have the Spirit of God, to write down the name of the man that the people have to heed after him. And if you go through the various stories, if you go through the story of Moses, of Joseph, of Muhammad and Jesus, and even in the Eastern religions, you'll find that the fact of the matter is each and every one of them claimed the will of their previous vicegerent. And they didn't have to. If we follow the ideas of the scholars of this day and age, who say there is no need to write a will, who say that the will is not a significant part of religion, if we follow their understanding, and let's entertain it for a minute, let's just humor that idea. Let's say, okay, so Prophet Muhammad didn't have to write a will, Jesus didn't have to claim the scroll of Isaiah, and so on and so forth. Let's entertain that. Then that basically essentially means that the scholars are saying that there was a different method by which Jesus had to identify himself, by which Muhammad had to identify himself, by which the Mahdi will have to identify himself, and so on and so forth. Now, what is that method? Is it miracles? Is it convincing the people by their eloquence? Is it, what exactly is it? Because they never did those things to convince people. They never came, we never found that Prophet Muhammad comes to the people and says to them, everyone, I am the messenger after Jesus. And then the people have to say, okay, prove it to us. And then he says, okay, watch this. And then he splits the moon in two. That's not what happened. What happened is Prophet Muhammad said, I am the messenger of God because Jesus mentions me in his writings or in his speech. In the Gospels, I am Ahmad. In the Gospels, I am the Paraclete, I am the Comforter, I am the Holy Spirit. Go back to Jesus. Did Jesus come to the crowd and say in front of the temple, everyone, I am the Messiah and you must listen to me? And the people say to him, okay, Jesus, you're the Messiah, prove it. And he says, sure. And then he brings the dead back to life? That's not what happened. Instead, he pulled out the scroll of Isaiah and he unrolls it and he says, you know this scroll that you guys read every day in the temple? Well, this person mentioned in it, that's me. That's what Jesus did. Did he have to? Couldn't he have just done a miracle and been like, there you go, now you have to listen to me? He could have, but he didn't. Yes. And this has been hidden from the people's understanding. And this is what Aba Sadiq is bringing forward. The will is that document, that rope that comes from heaven to earth, that is from God, so it's safe.
Yes.
It's from God, so it will not misguide you. It will keep you safe if you just look for it and you listen to it and you read it and you understand it and you follow it. That's the miracle of the will.
Yeah, and the big miracle of the will. And another miracle of the will is for those who say, well, my name is Ahmed. I could have claimed the will. But the point is you didn't.
You did not claim that.
You didn't claim the will.
Too
Only
late.
one person claimed the will, and that is Ahmed al-Hassan, from him is peace, the promised Yamani, from the family of Muhammad. And only these individuals can claim the will because it is safeguarded. And this is one of the miracles of the will. And it is a hidden treasure that was brought forth by Imam Ahmed al-Hassan, who became the first claimant of the will of the Prophet Muhammad. And he said, there are 12, where it says there are 12 Mahdis after the 12 Imams, I am the first of them, and here is my name, Ahmed, mentioned explicitly in the will, and this is my claim to the successorship of Imam al-Mahdi. And in the same way, Aba Al-Sadiq said, I am the Abdullah. Look into the histories of all the claimants, and they're all false other than the ones that I've mentioned, who use this will as a means to claim their right. It was no one. This is one of the secrets of God. This is something that He Himself protects, and this is something that Satan and his soldiers can never get a hold of and claim. God would never allow it because it is the pillar of guidance, and God is a God of mercy, and He always leaves His pillars of guidance for humanity. Otherwise, we would all be astray.
Exactly.
No one would find the way.
They
And
have
that
to
is
be
not
intact.
who God is.
No, those pillars have to be intact, and God is a truthful God. And even on a logical standing point, I mean, this is how the world works. If you want to prove who you are and identify yourself, you have an ID card, you have a birth certificate. If you want to prove that you are legally married to someone, you have a marriage certificate. It's a document that you prove, and you say, this is a proof that I'm married, or this is a proof that I was born in this country, or this is my passport that proves my identity or my citizenship. It's not an untoward idea that a prophet or a vicegerent would have to have that document that says, yeah, I was actually vouched for by the previous one. Here's my name. He mentioned it. The one that you trust. Are we all on the same page now? Okay, let's move forward. I mean, it's not an insane idea, and it's always been the case, and it's still happening right now. So I think it's time for people to get to terms with it. Prophet Muhammad wrote a will, and Abdullah is mentioned in it, and he's the only one saying that he is the Abdullah of the will. So go ahead and look into the matter if you don't know about it yet, and download the Goal of the Wise, and that should give you a lot of clarity on the matter as well.
Yes, it's something that is in alignment with the human intellect. If there is a God, then He is the ruler and owner of everything, and He appoints because He is the most knowledgeable about who has the right to lead mankind, and then He has made this a safeguarded methodology by which His successor can be identified. I mean, the beauty is in the simplicity, and God makes things easy for us, and it is we who are, just determined to complicate things unnecessarily. And the simplicity of God is a reflection of His beauty.
Yes, very well said. We're excited now because we're going to have a very special guest on our show, and we really want to bring him on and go into a few very important topics of religion with him. But before we get to him, let's quickly check out that interview that you and I did, Irfan, with Brother Zygmunt from Poland. We're going to play a quick clip of that, show you a glimpse of how that conversation went. It was a wonderful conversation, and we encourage you to watch the full interview on our playlist, I Found the Mahdi. So let's go ahead and check out Brother Zygmunt from Poland, and we'll be right back after that segment.
I think it was the belief that drove me here, the signs that I saw around me, the evidence that I saw after investigating, the prayers that I was praying to God, that I want to serve you. I want to serve you in the best way possible. And I found this call when it is so obvious to serve God, because you know who is the messenger of God. You know that God is speaking through him. I was praying that I want to hear the voice of God. I'm hearing it. It's like my prayers are answered. And I think that the most crucial moment was, of course, after watching the lectures of Aba Al-Sadiq, from him is peace, and from him is and peace is from him, yes. I think that when I saw the knowledge after the knowledge that he presented, like in the reality of crucifixion, that I admire a lot this lecture. I also admire a lot the ceremony of clarification.
The sermon of clarification.
Yes.
Yes.
When I saw and felt the seriousness of this call, and I saw that this is actually happening, that these are the end times. Here I see the man appointed by God on YouTube, on my TV, speaking, announcing, asking for help. And the words that he said, that if you truly believe that this is the call of the Qaim, if you truly believe that then there should be nothing that stop you to come and help. So I just came and helped, and here I am.
Amazing.
Because I believe
Incredible.
it. Yeah. When I got to know the concept of the Mahdi, I was reading the Quran. I was kind of lost in this Islam, I didn't know how to pray properly. I knew the concept of the Mahdi. I saw a video of Aba Al-Sadiq talking, and then I saw that the channel is called The Mahdi Has Appeared.
So you randomly found this YouTube video?
Yes.
So you were actually looking into the religion of Islam, because you, of course, are from a Christian Catholic background, right?
Yes.
And you were researching Islam. That's how the kind of journey began.
Yes. I started researching it after some Arab man told me to read the Quran, and he was talking about the Mahdi. I was confused then, and where is God in this world? So I decided to read the Quran. I saw a lot of truth in it. I saw the mysticism of the book. I saw that Jesus and Mary, peace be upon them, they are in this book. I was surprised. So this drove me even more into reading the Quran. And and after knowing the concept of the Mahdi, I found a channel that is called The Mahdi Has Appeared. So I automatically wanted to investigate this channel, and I had this feeling that this guy, Aba Al-Sadiq, the Qaim, knows what he's talking about, that he's very knowledgeable. So I was out of wisdom, actually. I was if I find that this guy is wise, I want to know more. And the channel is The Mahdi Has Appeared. He's talking about this figure. Let me follow this, yeah? And in one of the videos, it was obvious to me that he is the second Mahdi. And I believed it. It was obvious to me that he actually is the Mahdi. Then I got to know the concept that there are more Mahdis, that there is the 12th Imam, and there is Mahdis after him. And I remember that in one of his lectures, he was saying that even if you find something in this code that doesn't click, is giving you some doubts, stick around, hold on tightly to it, like it is written. Hold on tightly to it, and then you will have the clarity after it.
So true.
So I followed it. Even if I didn't understand something from the beginning, he actually said, hold on tightly to it, then it will be obvious for you. So I did it. When I didn't understand something, I was still, okay, he said to hold on tightly. I was holding on. And later the answer was were coming down upon me every time I had doubts. So everything he was saying was making sense, and the more I was watching him, the more I was even more and more certain that he is the man who is appointed by God to rule the earth in this day and age. It is very intense. It is, if you truly believe in it, it is like very intense, because you are walking amongst incarnation of prophets that are known in humanity. You are walking amongst the best crew in the world, the best family in the world, and if you meet the James Aba Al-Sadiq, from him is peace, if you believe that you are truly seeing God in creation, you are hearing his voice. Like, just think, you know, you just talk with someone who basically God is speaking through him. So just imagine what this experience can be. For me, it was very intense, overwhelming. Everybody is polite, everybody is united, everybody is supportive to each other. And we have one goal. We want to establish divine just state. We want God to rule over the earth. We want to end all the wars. We want to end hunger, because if we are actually going on Mars and Moon, we have the technology to do that. They say, the tyrants say that we have this technology, and they don't end the hunger and the wars. Something is not right. And there are very few of them. And there are so many people, like in these movies, when you have ants against the bigger, you know, creatures. But actually, if all the ants unite against the, for example, bee, they can defeat them, you know? And we are like these humans that can unite and defeat the tyrants, because they cannot do anything if we have, if we gather people, like thousands and thousands around from every country, they cannot stop it. They would just have to be defeated, you know? And this is prophesied that it will happen. Yeah, and it is not only the sermon of clarification, of course, that I advise people to watch. It is also the sermon of with the title "The Mahdi Invites to the Seventh Covenant," and
that's an amazing sermon.
Yes, and the about the Arab traitors. When this is actually something that I would advise people who are Islam or against Islam, actually, to see the sermon when Mahdi exposes Arab traitors. And then you will have this, wait a second, so he's against them? You know? I thought like he's like...
part of the problem.
Yeah, he's the team of these crazy guys, but he's actually against them? Oh, and they are the false prophets. And then you start, okay, I like this. And this is something that I would recommend everybody that who is like against changing his religion from Christianity to Islam. He is like afraid that Islam is something bad. Check the video. The James exposes the Arab traitors and see that he is actually against these evil guys.
From Poland. Thank you so much again, Brother Zygmunt. If you're watching, we really appreciated you joining us here at AROPL Studios. And we're here right now with another very great brother of ours who has recently decided to dedicate his life to God and to supporting the call of God in this day and age. And I'm talking about Brother Zhong Al Al-Mahdi.
From one truth seeker to another.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you for joining us. We're so happy that you're here. We're so happy that you have that name, Al Al-Mahdi. Al Al-Mahdi is a name, guys, that means the family of the Mahdi. And we have a very large family around the world. And when they come and they decide to join us and to build this great movement that we have towards humanity, towards peace and light, it fills us with so much joy and so much pride. And we are so proud of this young brother who's sitting here right now, who has made a huge leap of faith. come from a very, very different place, from a very different understanding, and still decided to board the Ark of Salvation. How wonderful is that?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky, honestly. I was just lost in the world. I had no idea where I was going. I just knew that the world wasn't where I wanted it to be. You know, when I was younger, people always ask me, oh, what did you want to do when you were older? I always tell them, I want to save the world. You know, I want to help humanity. And then as I got older, they would always say, you know, how are you going to do that? So that's when like this sinking feeling, I realized that, oh, how am I actually going to do this? You know, and so I looked at different things. I studied hard. You know, I wanted to do this, and that for humanity. But then I realized, like, that's not going to work because, like, everyone's already doing it. So why is it so bad still out there? Until I found Aba Al-Sadiq. You know, that's when it all clicked.
So what did you pick to study that you thought would help humanity?
So what I picked was chemical engineering. And the reason I picked chemical engineering was because I always used to like chemistry. I liked the transformation, like everything for me was in a state of change. I liked investigating that. And the engineering because of money, basically. Yeah.
Well, that is an important part, right? How to survive in this very difficult world we're living in right now. And it's a sad part of life, that part of living on Earth is worrying about how to survive on Earth. This is a time we're living in.
Yeah, definitely. It's unlike the non-working scholars who just sit there on their pulpits, do absolutely nothing, and then have the people pay their salary.
Exactly.
Yes.
So Zhong, I'd love to give a little bit of background about yourself here to the viewers. It would be great for them to hear where you come from, your origins, what your background religion was, all of that stuff. So let's let them know about who you really are and where you come from.
Sure. So I was actually born in Spain to Chinese parents. And growing up, I wasn't really religious at all. I was more spiritual. You know, see, this is the thing, that over the centuries, the religion has been corrupted, and they've taken out the religion from spirituality. They've like separated them. You know, they say that you can be spiritual without, you know, believing in God, which is a complete fallacy, obviously. So growing up, I didn't really have this concept of God. I just knew that I had to be a good person. You know, I had to not do bad things to other people because bad things would happen to me. And if I did really, really bad, next life, I would have a severe punishment. Because I remember a story, I was walking down the street with my mom, and I saw a man who was homeless, who didn't have arms. And I was really young, and I remember asking my mom, hey mom, why does, like, well, what happened to him? Why is he like this? And she said, well, maybe it's because, you know, last life he did something bad, and this life he, you know, he deserved this. And so that's very early on I understood the concept of, you know, this is not the one shot we have. We have many shots, many different opportunities to...
So karma and reincarnation was very much a part of your religious upbringing?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
and you were following basically like a Buddhist creed.
Yeah.
And you are originally from China.
Yes. Yeah, a Buddhist, but also because in China there's so many religions and it's so mixed that Buddhism has been mixed a lot with Taoism as well. And Confucianism and legalism, and it's just become a big melting pot, sort of like myself, like a big melting pot of cultures.
Well, I think it's interesting that you said that spirituality and religion have been separated, and I'd love to go deeper into that with you. We're definitely going to do a full-on interview with Brother Zhong for I Found the Mahdi, so tune in for that when it comes out, and be aware that we're going to be doing that soon. But for the sake of today's segment, Zhong, we were talking today about religion and the unity of the true religions, the unity of the truth within religions. The fact that mainstream religion now is 99% corrupted, and that's quite a percentage. And this is from Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, from the Goal of the Wise. But we say that prophets and messengers were sent to every nation and to every place on earth. And that is why we know from Aba Al-Sadiq that the unknown prophets, such as Buddha, such as Krishna, such as Lao Tzu, Confucius, these men actually had great truths with their peoples that they gave to them. But unfortunately, like you said, there's been a lot of corruption now. Spirituality has been separated from God himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we wanted to actually go into the unity aspect, because we say that there's one God who sent all these messengers, both to the Abrahamic religions and to the Eastern religions. So we wanted to take a minute to actually see what is it that we can say is actually something in common that they all have? You know, like what is it that we can say is something you'll find here but also here?
Well, I think one of the most important things is successorship. I think a lot of these prophets, well, all of these prophets actually, they appointed a successor by name as well.
Right.
Like for example, in the case of Buddha, he appointed Ananda, and in the case of Krishna, he appoints Arjuna. And so this sunnah, this way, is always preserved. You can tell that it comes from the same source because it follows the same rules. And it's as a mercy to us, because if God keeps changing His ways, then how can we be sure that it's actually from Him? This is from Him.
So you'll find in that region that there are prophets appointing the next prophet, just as you'll see that in the Abrahamic faiths, right?
Yes, and it creates this chain, doesn't it? This unbroken chain that goes all the way back to the first man, the father of all mankind. And if that chain is in place by the appointment of a predecessor to a successor, then it's very difficult for the non-working scholars, the tyrannical rulers, to come in and infiltrate the religion. If the Prophet Muhammad says, after me is Ali, and he lifts his hand up and he declares it to the entire Muslim ummah, it's because he cares about the legacy of his community.
Yeah, and you'll find that actually Buddha's story is really similar to Prophet Muhammad's story, whereby a character similar to Abu Bakr and Omar came in and usurped Ananda and pushed him to the side.
That's true.
Which is a very interesting.
So the usual suspects, they're always coming in and trying to usurp the religions, but God always ensures that the true successor is appointed. Whether you're following Buddhism or Confucianism or Islam or Christianity, that successorship will always be something God preserves as a concept, and I think that's incredible. That's found as a unifying factor.
Yes, and these players that come in, they come at this key moment, don't they? Right at the time of appointment of the successor. They could be obedient disciples their entire lives, but then suddenly, at that critical moment,
11th hour,
where the torch is being passed to the next successor,
they steal it.
They steal it. They wake up and they attack, right? And this is, again, cross-cultural. It's across the world.
Yeah, it's as if it's God has a sunnah and the devil has a sunnah.
Well said. Yes. Very well said. I think knowing your enemy is the key to success, and that is the way of the devil, to usurp the appointment that God has bestowed on the rightful heir.
Absolutely.
So that successorship, what else do we see that we find between all of them, but people haven't realized it's in all these religions?
Well, I sort of talked about it before, but the concept of reincarnation and karma, I think this is something universal. And even if you go deep into the jungles of the Amazon, or even to the remote places, you'll find people that they understand this concept. The concept that if you do something bad and something bad happens to you, they think, oh wow, that was probably because I did this and that. And this is karma. This is something innate in the human being that makes us behave like human beings, essentially. This is what separates us from animals, because we have intellect. We understand things. That there are things that we shouldn't do, and there are things that we should do.
Interesting.
And Jesus told us, didn't he? He said, be like children if you want to enter the kingdom of God. And I'm just going back to that scene that you had with your mother when you were a mere child, and you observed something. You saw a man who was without limbs sitting in the corner, and you're like, Mom, why? What is the reason why he is like this? A very, very powerful question.
That really is. It's a very intelligent observation, and an innocent one, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. But your mom had a very wise response because of her upbringing in the Eastern faiths. But if this was posed to somebody who is of a Jewish, Muslim, Christian creed, they would really struggle to give an answer.
Great point.
Right?
Great point.
Exactly.
But that doesn't say that it's not in the scripture, because we do find that Jesus himself, in the Gospels, we find that there's a conversation happening in the time of Jesus, and there's someone who's blind, and it's actually mentioned that it's because of something he's done before that God let him be born blind. And that means they knew that there are other lifetimes, and that actions in other lifetimes reap consequences.
Very, very good point, Ali. And you said, is there something he did before? Because then people would say he's done something wrong in that life, but he was born blind.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah. Like, how is it fair for someone who's born poor, like in some remote village in Africa, who dies at the age of, 30-something, to be that his only life? How is that fair?
It's not fair. And at the same time, you do find that very good people who haven't done something wrong are also tried, and they're given these tests and these burdens to carry because they're elevating in some form, or it's part of their journey. But karma and reincarnation they're both something that you do find both in the scriptures, which we've mentioned in a previous episode, as well as, of course, in the Eastern religions.
Exactly, yeah.
Definitely.
And God is just, right? God is the most just. So he would never let this injustice happen. He will always let you try again and try again and try again until...
Well said.
You know.
So, Zhong, what would you say is another key aspect that is missed in our understanding of being a unifying factor between the religions, Abrahamic and Eastern?
I think the whole concept of God. So what I mean by that is a lot of the Eastern faiths, they go secular. You know, they keep the spirituality aspect of it, as I mentioned before, but the whole concept of God, they sort of put it to the side or even just like rub it out. Like I've spoken to some Buddhists that they don't actually even believe in God.
Yeah.
They just say that, you know, Buddhists, when they reach that enlightenment, when they break the cycle of reincarnation, they just, you know, ascend. But like what I like to ask them is, okay, where do they go?
Ascend to what exactly?
Yeah, do they just dissolve into nothingness? No, absolutely. That's
nihilism.
Yeah, that's horrible, right? So this breaking the cycle of reincarnation has to mean that you go somewhere, your soul goes somewhere, you know. And where does it return to? To his Lord, to God.
That's
right.
Beautiful.
So I think a lot of the Eastern faiths, they do miss that. And in Taoism as well, you know, Taoism, the Tao of Taoism means the path. You know, it means walking the path, walking the straight path. And what does the Abrahamic religions say?
The Sirat al-Mustaqim,
right?
The straight path.
The straight path where it leads you to God. You know, it's that the path you have to walk that is straight, and the destination of that path is God.
I think it's also very important to contemplate on the fact, Zhong, that the Eastern religions are very much pointing in that direction. Like the Tao, what is the Tao? It is something you cannot define.
Exactly.
And God is not some man sitting in the sky with a beard on a throne, right?
Exactly.
This is not the idea of God as some sects in Islam understand it to be. When they don't speak on God, we actually have the Book of Monotheism, another tremendous book written by Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, the Promised Yamani, from the family of Muhammad. And
available on the website, by the way.
Also available on the website under the book section. Beautifully written, extremely deep. And he says in this that you cannot... God is beyond description. He is a mystery you cannot understand. So therefore, to understand him, he sends a man veiled in his attributes that you may know him through this means. And a lot of the Eastern religions, they may not have explicitly mentioned God, but they mentioned the truth, the way, the Tao.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because I think the Western religions, what they do is they point towards like the highest good. You know, they point towards, as you mentioned, the old man sitting in the sky. And that's who we should obey. Whereas in the Eastern religions, it's always inner. You know, it's look within yourself and you shall find God.
Interesting.
Right.
And I think the truth is both. You know, there is an objective good, there is this higher power that we should all achieve for. But how do we do it? We do it from inside. We change ourselves.
Yes.
You know, because the outer is a reflection of the inner.
Fascinating. And another fascinating book is the Bhagavad Gita.
I was just about to bring that up.
Right, we're on the same wavelength.
You can't miss the Gita right now. You
can't miss the Gita. And if you were to read the Bhagavad Gita with an open heart and mind, you will see some treasures of knowledge in there. But in essence, Krishna teaches Arjuna, he tells him that, look, there is an absolute reality that is beyond your understanding.
Yep.
No one can truly understand and know God, which is what makes him God.
Yes.
But if you concentrate in meditation on me, Krishna, you will find as close as you can possibly get to God is through me. You know, and this is what the Prophet said, I am the city of knowledge, Ali is the gate. Come to the city through its gate. And Krishna at that time was the gate. And the Gita is actually one of those amazing, beautiful texts that actually written in original Sanskrit. It's like a poem. It's a long, beautiful poem, part of the Mahabharata, which is the story of Krishna. So another Eastern religion in which Krishna, who is now worshipped as a deity, is saying, look, there's an absolute truth.
Yeah. And I'm the vessel towards it, or I'm the gate towards it. And you find when you really read that Gita and you actually have the sincerity to understand what is truly being said rather than what it's being interpreted as, which again goes back to the scholars.
Yes.
We don't want to heed that. We want to go to God himself directly. We find that monotheism is a key part of the Hindu religion.
It really is.
Hinduism is not away from monotheism, neither is Buddhism. Monotheism seems to be a key aspect of the teachings of Buddha, the teachings of Krishna, and their sayings have a lot of the aspect of the one entity in them.
Yes.
But they lead you towards that entity because God sends a messenger in each day and age. But unfortunately, people have villainized or shown this to be an evil idea, the fact that, okay, Hinduism has many gods in it, but no, this is again a corruption that we would love to go into deeper.
It's so true, Ali. You know, there's a verse in the Quran, it says that Jesus will be questioned on the Day of Judgment, that did I tell you to tell the people to worship you and your mother as a God beside me? You know, and Jesus will say, absolutely not. I never said such a thing. Glory be to you. The Buddhist, the Buddha likewise, and Krishna likewise, who are now worshipped, they would say the same thing because their religions were corrupted just as Paul corrupted Christianity.
Yes.
By successes that you mentioned. And this character that came who tried to usurp the right of Ananda did exactly that. And he took Buddhism into sectarianism that divided and divided. And then unfortunately over time, the truth of the monotheistic essence of Buddhism was lost.
Yeah, exactly, no. And if you dig deep enough, you will definitely find this description of God. It's just not mentioned as God.
Right.
Buddha mentions a concept, an uncreated concept. You know, it's an uncreate, something that's not created, something that's formless.
Right.
You know.
Wow.
Exactly. And that idea of formlessness is something that the Imam even alludes to in the book of monotheism.
Exactly. You can't confine God. You can't you can't put him into a form or give him that name. Even naming him is a confinement, but we have to name him to identify him. But the Imam says, even saying God is one is a confining factor, but this is all we can do to understand him.
Yes.
But the truth is you cannot define him.
Yes, exactly. And in Hinduism, they have Brahma, which is a created deity or prophet, most likely, but they also have the Brahman, which is beyond understanding, beyond reality. It's that unifying oneness. And if that isn't monotheism, I don't know what is.
Yeah, that's why you have to truly seek for knowledge. You know, you have to truly question these things. And if you think about it, if you really truly think about it, you'll come to the conclusion whereby you realize every single one of these worship deities, worship figures, they're all just prophets. You know, they're all preaching the same message. It's just that people have come, people have interpreted for themselves, by themselves, for their own benefit, and they've just led people astray, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
I think it's really amazing to actually see, Zhong, that there are people out there who are hearing Aba Sadiq's words. They're reading his book. You read his book, The Goal of the Wise. And that had such a profound impact on you, despite the fact that you were not raised Muslim or Christian or Jewish. You were on a whole different planet. You were on a whole different frequency. But the truth somehow grabbed you and you could not deny it, all the way to the point that you just decided to leave everything you knew and said to yourself, if here is God, I must go to him. No matter how unfamiliar it is or how new it seems or whatever it is.
Zhong is a testament to the transformational power of the Goal of the Wise.
Yep.
The effect it had on you is just enormous, right?
It's incredible. And all thanks due to God and Aba Sadiq, honestly. It was Aba Sadiq. The way he unified the suspicions I had since I was a little kid. The suspicion where I had in the back of my mind, you know, I always knew all these messages, even though they're so different in their parent, I know there has to be a truth to it. I know somehow, some way or another, they're the same. And lo and behold, I saw Aba Sadiq on the pulpit. I saw him giving his lectures. I read The Goal of the Wise, and I remember it was just this profound experience. You know, my whole life just changed. My whole brain chemistry shifted. And the way he spoke, I knew this man was speaking the truth, because no one speaks with that level of conviction except for the one who holds the truth. And no one claims to stand for God except if they do. Because God wouldn't allow someone to use his name to do something that's not for God. You know, if they were not righteous and they're using God's name, God will not be happy with that. And you have to believe this because you know that God is just and God will never mislead a sincere servant.
So true.
And if you're sincere, you'll find the truth.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you a question as well, Zhong, because before you embraced the call of Aba Sadiq, from him is peace, you actually embraced the call of his forefather, Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. And that was interesting because I remember before, me and Irfan, we were meeting you and we were asking you about your story. And again, I can't wait to do that full-on interview for I Found the Mahdi with you, Brother Zhong. But let's give a little teaser to the viewers about your story and your life. You were someone who was not aware at all about Islam.
No.
And then suddenly you found yourself absolutely fascinated by Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. What happened?
Yeah, I think this fascination was partly due to external influences, not really positive ones. You know, on the outside, a lot of people, especially in the country I was raised in, Spain, they see Muslims as these terrorists, essentially. Yes. You know, and when I dug deep into Islam, into religion of Islam, I found the complete opposite. You know, and I knew by that point that they had corrupted it. You know, all these terrorists, when they say that they were following the religion of Islam, I know they were lying. You know, but that's fine. So I dug deep into Islam and I found the Prophet, peace be upon him. And it's just the way he's described, the way he's portrayed, his morals and manners, the way people spoke about him. I just felt like this was such a special man. You know, such that he was. And even the Quran, when I read the Quran before, that he was sent as a mercy from us, you know, to us. I just thought, you know, this man, wow, this man must be really, really special. But then I got stuck up with the world. You know, I went to university, I did this and that, and I sort of forgot about it. Until my third year in university, where I was...
This is in the UK now?
This is in the UK, yeah, this was a couple of years ago. This was... You know, when I was at a point in my life where I was lost, you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't very happy. I had just broken up. And I went to the cinema and I went to watch a movie. And just as I was leaving the cinema, this is in Leicester Square, just outside the cinema was this stand of Muslim brothers who were preaching and giving out free Qurans. And that day, I don't know, God inspired me and I just thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to go speak to them. Spoke to them for 40 minutes and they convinced me, you know, like even the way they speak about Prophet Muhammad, even though it's misrepresented, you can still tell that there's something behind it, you know. And lo and behold, after I investigated Prophet Muhammad and I started investigating Islam, God just put Al-Sadiq in front of me. It was as if God was waiting for me to take this leap of faith.
Preparing you for the path.
And what a giant leap you took from the
huge chasm in between and you just... Incredible.
Oh no, because I knew. I believed more in Abu Sadiq than myself. And that's why I took the leap of faith.
And for those listening to you right now, why? Why is it that you would believe in a man other than yourself to that extent?
What was it about him that specifically sort of resonated with you?
His knowledge, his message, and the will, honestly. But to me, the more personal things is the way he spoke, the knowledge he gave, the conviction he had. You know, the way he cursed the Arab leaders, the way he cursed the scholars, the way he said that none of you who speak in the name of God have a right to speak in the name of God. And I knew for a fact that this man could not be lying. Yes. I knew. I just knew.
Zhong, it's so amazing that we've managed to have you here on the show today. We're happy that you were able to come. And again, we're very excited to go deeper into your story and actually show the viewers how incredibly inspiring it is that someone can do what you've done. And we've had so many inspiring stories on Rise Up, and we're going to continue to be showing you different brothers and sisters from around the world who are making that leap of faith, who are recognizing the Spirit of God on earth today, and who are actively moving towards building a divine just state with the messenger of God on earth, Abdullah Hashem Aba Al-Sadiq. Do you want to board the Ark of Salvation with us? If you're someone who believes in humanity comes first, if you're someone who believes in our slogan, allegiance is to God, in our banner, if you believe that the nations around the world must unite together and rise up for the truth and for peace and light, then contact us on our website, call us in on our phone number on the screen, and tune in again tomorrow for another episode of Rise Up. And until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.